Whether they were playing an alien bugman or an evil clone, these sci-fi actors weren't afraid to get weird with their roles. Battlefield Earth is one of the biggest disasters in science fiction movie history. The film, which was released in 2000 and is based on a novel by Scientology founder L. Ron Hubbard, was a passion project for star John Travolta. The Pulp Fiction star was so committed to the cause that he personally donated money towards the $75 million budget. His over-the-top performance as an alien security chief, Turl, was instantly iconic for all the wrong reasons. And he didn't help things by calling the film the Schindler's List of science fiction, and like Star Wars, only better. Between its confusing story, bizarre performances, and ridiculous dialogue, Travolta and Battlefield Earth became the laughingstock of the science fiction genre. The film's screenwriter, J.D. Shapiro, publicly apologized for writing the film, saying, "Out of all the sucky movies, mine is the suckiest." The film's executive producer, Andrew Stevens, went even further, telling Vice it was a concept with a book and a script that should never have been made.
I don't know if I could have kept my sanity.
Christopher Lloyd had big, hammy shoes to fill when he accepted the role of Klingon villain Krug in 1984's Star Trek III, The Search for Spock. The film's predecessor, 1982's Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, featured the return of bare-shirted scene chewer Ricardo Montalban, leading to some of the most over-the-top moments in sci-fi history. While Khan is a strategic leader who plays on Captain James T. Kirk's anxieties, Krug is a bizarre warlord who refuses to accept logic. Leonard Nimoy directed The Search for Spock and decided that Krug should have an element of theatricality about him. Lloyd said he particularly enjoyed the character's death scene, telling StarTrek.com, "I thought it was a great ending for the character, very entertaining, and I couldn't tell where I ended and the puppet started." Ian McDiarmid was given the role of Emperor Palpatine by Return of the Jedi casting director Mary Selway after she saw him performing on stage in the Sam Shepard play Seduced. Initially, McDiarmid was shocked at the elaborate makeup required, but he decided to commit to the absurdity of the material. While Marjorie Eaton and Clive Revill had previously portrayed Palpatine in The Empire Strikes Back, McDiarmid decided to give Palpatine a reptilian characterization that showed how the dark side had caused him to descend into madness. Palpatine's over-the-top behavior certainly makes 2005 Star Wars Episode III, Revenge of the Sith, more enjoyable. While Anakin Skywalker is tormented by his wicked actions, Palpatine seems to revel in being evil. According to McDiarmid, George Lucas told him that he should think of Palpatine's human appearance as a mask. Tim Burton's 1996 sci-fi satire, Mars Attacks, is emboldened by Jack Nicholson's hilarious performance as U.S. President James Dale. Even as people are murdered right in front of him, Dale remains willfully delusional, asking the murdering Martian invaders,
"Why can't we all just get along?"
When Burton approached Nicholson about joining the project, the famous actor asked if he could play multiple roles in the story. Burton said, "Jack is willing to do anything, no matter how crazy it seems." Burton was impressed with Nicholson's commitment and decided to let him play both President Dale and real estate tycoon Art Land. To get Nicholson even more excited about the film, the crew would play "Hail to the Chief" anytime he stepped onto the set. Expectations are very high for 2023's Dune Part 2, especially since it will mark the first appearance of Christopher Walken as Emperor Shaddam IV. However, Walken isn't the first great actor to step into Imperial shoes for a Dune film. In David Lynch's 1984 adaptation, the legendary Puerto Rican actor Jose Ferrer gave a comically campy depiction of the fearsome dictator. Lynch's film has a cult fan base for a reason. The film struggles to explain the complex political infrastructure of the Dune universe, but it's enjoyable to watch because of the Lynchian weirdness of its visuals and performances. Every scene with the Emperor is maximized, and while the film's production was difficult, Ferrer somehow manages to deliver even the weirdest lines with a straight face.
This is genocide. The deliberate and systematic destruction of all life on Arrakis.
Shortly after its release, Howard the Duck quickly earned the nickname Howard the Turkey. The film is, to put it mildly, a complete disaster of tone. The only person who seems to have had any fun making Howard the Duck was Tim Robbins, who had a supporting role as eccentric scientist Phil Blumbert. Robbins was apparently the only one who knew what the tone of the film should have been, as he majorly played up the wacky scientist element of the character. Robbins later admitted that he was more interested in earning a quick paycheck than making a good movie, but he has since become one of the film's only defenders, saying, "To be honest, I think there's a lot of charming things about that film." If you've ever seen Batman the Animated Series, you know that Mr. Freeze is often depicted as a tragic character who only becomes a villain to save his wife. That's not exactly the direction that Joel Schumacher went in when he introduced Arnold Schwarzenegger's version of the chilling villain in 1997's Batman and Robin. Although the film does try to incorporate Mr. Freeze's backstory, it's mostly an excuse for Schwarzenegger to deliver a series of terrible puns.
Let's kick some ice.
Although Warner Brothers originally intended to take the character in a more serious direction, the script was rewritten after Schwarzenegger took the part. Schwarzenegger certainly committed to the role, and he's still committed to it. Although Schumacher and star George Clooney have both apologized for the film, Schwarzenegger says that he has no regrets about his performance. He told Empire, "I don't regret it at all. I felt that the character was interesting." 1997's Men in Black has a unique mixture of tone. Although the film is a buddy cop adventure, there's an underlying element of body horror that adds to the tension of the story. Of course, one of the most terrifying creatures in the film is the alien bug that inhabits the body of Edgar, a clueless farmer played by Vincent D'Onofrio. To create the character, D'Onofrio added his own mannerisms, including the character's dull voice and strange facial expressions. D'Onofrio has said that his voice was inspired by both John Huston and George C. Scott. He studied bug movements and even put his legs in a basketball knee brace so that he couldn't move his torso. It all paid off in one of the most memorable and bizarre performances in sci-fi history.
You don't like it? You can kiss my furry little butt.
Sylvester Stallone's ill-fated 1995 sci-fi action bomb, Judge Dredd, was filled with over-the-top performances.
You killed innocent people.
The means to an end.
You started a massacre.
I caused the revolution.
You betrayed the law.
But 2012's Dredd managed to thread the needle by being both way better than the previous version and still maintaining that crazy energy. That was thanks in part to the performance of Lena Headey as the ruthless drug lord known as Mama, who distributes a drug known as slow-mo that affects its users' comprehension of time. Headey said that Mama's descent into madness was inspired by punk rock singer Patti Smith, and that she tried to emulate the movement of great white sharks. She added that she tried to purge herself of emotions to play a character who isn't afraid to kill or die. Headey's terrifying performance is even more shocking thanks to the immersive use of 3D effects in the film. After the success of The Next Generation on television, the underwhelming cinematic adventures of Captain Picard and his crew felt shallow in comparison. This iteration of the Star Trek franchise didn't go out with a bang, but with a whimper, as 2002's Star Trek Nemesis was a box office disaster that temporarily killed the franchise. In Nemesis, Picard comes into conflict with the Reman leader Shinzon, who is a clone of Picard's younger self. At the time, star Tom Hardy was a relative unknown, and according to James Haydock's biography, Tom Hardy, Dark Star Rising, he went to unusual lengths to land the role, filming tryout scenes from the script partially naked. It got him the job, but he may have wished it hadn't, as he had a difficult time dealing with negative fan reaction to the movie. 2 decades later, the original 2002 Spider-Man remains one of the greatest superhero films ever made. Sam Raimi's heartfelt, cheeky version of the friendly neighborhood web-slinger serves as a near-perfect version of Peter Parker's first cinematic adventure. A particularly high point is Willem Dafoe's terrifying performance as Norman Osborn, which is enough to give anyone nightmares. Dafoe was not familiar with the character's comic origins, so he conceived of Osborn as a very theatrical villain. He refused to let a stuntman perform any of the scenes where Osborn flies on his glider, and he did the same thing when he returned for the role in 2021's Spider-Man: No Way Home. Of course, Dafoe's signature cackle terrified even his co-stars.
Whoa, that was so scary.
Hugh Jackman is best known for his recurring role as Wolverine in the X-Men franchise. Understandably, Jackman wanted a change of pace and decided that he wanted to try playing a proper villain for once. In 2015's Chappie, Jackman plays engineer Vincent Moore, a former soldier who wants to develop robots for military purposes. Moore tries to track down the robot Chappie, who has developed his own personality. Jackman told Gizmodo that while the mullet he wears in the film is a little goofy, it was an important part of the character. He elaborated, "We came up with this idea of the guy, a bit like Ricky Gervais, in The Office, who thinks he's the guy that everyone likes and no one really does. He thinks he's the man in every way, but right down to his haircut, he's not." To its credit, 2017's Power Rangers is a lot better than it has any right to be. Instead of playing things completely for camp, the film chooses to treat the youthful heroes as characters in a coming-of-age movie. Who doesn't want to see The Breakfast Club with superheroes? Fortunately, it does still feature the ridiculously over-the-top villain, Rita Repulsa, played by Elizabeth Banks. Her performance features scenery chewing at its finest. She told Screen Rant she took inspiration from The Wizard of Oz's Wicked Witch of the West, saying, "We talked a lot about being sort of kitschy and campy, over the top, maintaining a sense of, wildness about her."
It's a Krispy Kreme.
Krispy Kreme. This is a special place.
Very special.
It must be.
Luc Besson's 1997 science fiction action film, The Fifth Element, might be the most absurd project that he's ever created, and that's no small statement. Among the various wacky characters in the film is Gary Oldman's insane villain Zorg, a wicked industrialist searching for a mysterious weapon that turns out to be a mysterious woman named Lilu. Oldman is decked out in elaborate makeup and goes for gags whenever he gets the chance.
You're a monster, Zorg. I know.
It's not a performance that Oldman was proud of. He admitted that he signed on to do the role as a favor to Besson and his producers, and that he can't stand rewatching the film or his performance. Oldman was even shocked when he was told that in the years since its initial release, The Fifth Element had inspired a passionate cult fan base. He said that the popularity of the film, and particularly his part in it, is a sign of just how wacky fandom has become.